the last time that I watched The Phantom Menace, I noticed that nothing's ever just like thrown in there. There is this kind of tumbling snowball that Lucas builds throughout his narratives. And maybe even in American History X, I'd like to see that.
I think
American
you're
Graffiti.
thinking of American Graffiti.
Yes.
Yeah,
very
American
different.
X is very, very different.
Still an amazing movie. But yeah, it's very different.
Hello there. You found the Lost Holocron, an ancient artifact of lore and legends from the galaxy far, far away. Each episode of the Lost Holocron, you will join an episodic discussion of media from the Star Wars universe. We will be your guides, Tim.
Hey.
I'm Kyle. Scott.
Hello?
And Stuart.
G'day.
We pick up where we left off on Chapter 1. Stuart, what's happening so far?
The story so far is that beyond the continually expanding borders of the New Republic, Grand Admiral Thrawn and Captain Pallaeon are gathering strength as Thrawn pieces together his master plan to utterly destroy what he still views as the rebellion.
Ooh, spooky.
Beautiful. So in Chapter 2, we have the introduction of a scattered trio, some months after the first chapter. On Coruscant, Luke is farewelled by an ostensibly distracted Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke is feeling depressed by the enormity of representing the mythological Jedi and rebuilding the Order on his own. Leia has begun her Jedi training, but is also buried under political responsibility. We are introduced to her aide, Winter, who has an eidetic memory. And Han and Chewie are on Tatooine trying to recruit smugglers to fulfill the logistical requirements of the New Republic. They're also accompanied by Wedge Antilles and a new character, Paige, who is described as completely unremarkable.
Poor Paige.
I thought it was actually cool that Wedge was the distraction.
He's the Hufflepuff of the rebellion.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah,
Sometimes being unremarkable has its advantage. Sometimes it's good to just blend into the crowd.
Oh, so he's not completely unremarkable then. It's remarkably unremarkable.
Which was, I felt like was a really good plan. They had Wedge there to make people stiffen up if they...
be a distraction.
Yeah. They think that the threat's over there, and if when they see that, maybe they like go for a gun, or they're more on edge about it. And then Paige can pick up on these things and say like, "Oh well, this person is out to get you," or "No, this person really did trust you." And in Han's section, the issue of trust was brought up quite a few times.
Yeah, and Wedge was like the distraction. Wedge was supposed to stick out, and Wedge was supposed to be a terrible backup man because Paige was supposed to be the real guy. You know, I wish I could remember the name of Dravis. He was like, "Yeah, tell your guy he's a terrible backup man." That's because he was supposed to be a terrible backup man because Paige was the real backup man. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. It was a really fun little fake out.
Yeah, it was.
I also really like that cantina specifically felt pretty familiar to Han.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he even says so. He's like, "Wait, weren't we just here?"
Yeah, but I also could see Han, since he's being taken up on the mission, like the one has to take it up and take charge of gathering smugglers to help out the New Republic with shipping supplies and getting trade routes back up. I could totally see him pushing for it, not just because it's like, the hive of scum and villainy, but also because he misses it.
Possibly. Could be nostalgic.
He just wants to spend some time back there.
He does seem like he's changed a bit, though, since then. I mean, like, he seems a little bit torn between two worlds, in a way. Of like, oh, I used to be here, and then everybody's telling him he's respectable. But he clearly doesn't feel comfortable with that.
Midlife crisis.
Yeah. Right, he even says he resigned his general rank. So it seems like it's just not something he's comfortable with.
Yeah. I felt like Han was very well characterized in this section.
I agree.
Although we don't get a lot of Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Not here, anyway.
And he's just kind of there. He didn't get his medal again.
He was weirdly silent the entire time. No reactions or anything to anything.
Yeah, I mean, like, Chewbacca's kind of the muscle, though.
Yeah, that is true.
He's not really there to be the point man.
In the audiobook, he makes a few noises.
But even just like a description of maybe Chewbacca looking over at sorry, what's the contact's name again?
Dravis.
Him looking over at Dravis when Dravis says something specifically, and maybe a description of what's going on in his eyes, or maybe like his hand tenses up at some point. He makes a little fist or whatever,
or his fur ripples, or his purring, or something.
Yeah, just something to indicate that he has a presence. That really stood out to me and kind of disappointed me a
Yeah.
bit.
We had one little comment at the beginning that says, beside him, Chewbacca growled softly. And that's before Dravis arrives. And then after Dravis leaves, he also says something that Han interprets as a slur.
Derogatory.
That's it.
Justice for Chewie.
No, I think what Han is doing is interesting. I'm so sick of hearing about people on Tatooine, but I do think it's interesting that they are getting smugglers to. Yeah,
It is.
I actually interpret this as saying goodbye to Tatooine, because
Oh.
after Jabba the Hutt is gone, there's a new somebody in town, and they've moved operations off Tatooine, so Tatooine seems like less important than it used to be.
yeah. Is it the hive of villainy and scum that it was? I don't think it is that anymore. I think it has become even less important than it was before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a nice little nod to, we've done this, and now these characters are going to grow beyond what's happening right now, or what we've seen them.
That's a really good point, and I really like it when you put it that way. We will never see it happen.
No, we're just going to abandon Tatooine and then find another desert planet to...
Jakku, maybe.
Yeah.
It's going to be called Tatooine.
Or
Tutuing.
I felt like there was a nice circularity to this chapter as well, because we start out with Luke thinking he's on Tatooine, but he's actually on Coruscant. And and then Luke is connected to Leia, who is next introduced by C-3PO. So C-3PO comes to see Luke and then goes off to see Leia. Then Leia finishes her section by reminiscing about how her and Han didn't have much to do with each other recently because they've been so busy. And then we're back on Tatooine, and at the beginning, Han is thinking like, oh yeah, this is where I met Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So yeah, we've got a nice little circularity there. Everything comes full circle. Everybody's kind of Ouroborosing a little bit. And then we get more of like the plots coming along, where there's the ripples of something's happening on the border regions, and I want to go check out the Abora Sky system. So it's got this nice kind of interconnectedness of everything that's happening so far.
Right, yeah. I think that's the best way to handle scene transitions, personally, in any storytelling, film, TV, book. Just whatever you leave off with your last scene, do something that follows up on it. It can be a direct action, a specific mention of a character. It can be thematically coherent, whatever, just some kind of prompt to keep a flow going. And you're right that this chapter crafted its flow really well as we're moving between our three main heroes.
And the last time that I watched The Phantom Menace as well, I noticed that Lucas was doing this as well in his directing style, is that he would introduce an idea in several scenes before it becomes part of a plot. And then this thing is introduced, the idea is expanded upon, and then it is used as a plot point. Nothing's ever just like thrown in there. There is this kind of tumbling snowball that Lucas builds throughout his narratives.
I need to give Phantom Menace another rewatch.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched Attack of the Clones, it felt like that as well. A little like less so, because Clones is a little cringy.
Hire a bounty hunter to hire another bounty hunter to kill your target.
But I do want to watch the original trilogy and see if like that is something that he's consistent with throughout his, and maybe even American History X. I'd like to see that. That was directed by Lucas as well, right?
American Graffiti.
I think you're thinking of American Graffiti.
Yes.
Yeah,
very
History
different.
X is very, very different.
Still an amazing movie, but yeah, it's very different. Yeah.
Nostalgic for the wrong kind of people.
I'm watching American History X.
American History X.
Is this George Lucas feels really different in this movie?
American History X set in the Star Wars universe.
Which was American Graffiti was filmed in one of my favorite towns, by the way.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Haven't you guys seen that movie?
Which movie?
American Graffiti?
No.
I'm ashamed to say I have not really. I don't think I've seen that. I think I've seen bits and pieces of it.
I really do recommend it. It's a really, really good movie. And it's really fun to see George Lucas in his more youthful days.
I'll have to check it out.
Before Star Wars. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah. Really, I do really like what you said about the whole circularity to it.
everything's interwoven very well.
And it was right to start on Luke, because I mean it always is. He's the one everyone is always, I guess, most anticipating
Mm-hmm.
because of how popular he is and how he's like our perspective. I always have a weird reaction to reading things from Luke's perspective in the books, because I feel like his specific perspective and character is pretty hard to capture. And I don't know if I felt like this one was quite there. I understood where he was coming from. I think he would start to be crushed under the massive weight of the Jedi Order now, especially with Obi-Wan Kenobi somehow leaving him as a Force ghost. But just the small details about how he talks kind of felt not particularly accurate to me.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I don't particularly link this character with the original trilogy character, but I do feel like the character of this story is very distinct in how and what we're feeling about this guy, and how he is feels a lot of responsibility and a lot of isolation as well, that coming from nowhere and losing a lot of his and feeling quite alone. I feel like that was very well placed on his shoulders in this chapter.
What's interesting is that in Book of Boba Fett, he seemed to have some of that. And so, I mean, I think it's a really accurate read on his character that that's what he would be feeling right now. I mean, again, it's just, I always feel like it's Luke himself has such a very specific vibe to his character that is really, really hard to recreate. And that's probably why they keep going back to Mark Hamill and de-aging him.
He really does make the character.
He does. He has this just really particular brand of not quite naive optimism, but also just a little bit of instability to him, where you feel like he could snap at any moment in various different ways. He could snap on others. He could collapse inwards on himself.
Are you talking about Luke or Mark Hamill?
Luke, specifically, yeah. But yeah, sure, Mark Hamill has that vibe. It's a bit more, add a bit of Joker in there, and you've got Mark Hamill. But no, there is this bit of unpredictability to Luke that I think has remained consistent with his character. And I feel like that's actually the specific thread that I think a lot of writers tend to miss when they write his character. Because I think they focus so much on the wide-eyed optimism, the kindness, the good-naturedness. They'll capture his other flaws, but I think that instability is something that I often don't feel is pretty present.
That's not something that I really picked up on in the original trilogy, is instability, because he seems very not adventurous, but like really pushed by his feelings, I guess, is how I would put it.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Because particularly in Empire, he's motivated not by what he thinks is right, but mostly what he feels is right. That he needs to go save his friends. He needs to uphold his promise to Obi-Wan Kenobi. He feels like he needs to go back to Dagobah to fulfill his training. Like, I don't feel like those are very thoughtful motivations, but they're emotional motivations.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. That's a great way to put it. He is always motivated by how he feels.
I kind of find, I think there has to be some instability to Luke, just for the life that he has led and everything that has happened to him. Like, the people he's watched die, the people he's killed, the just... What a thing to go through. Like, it was his destiny to go through it, but he can't be okay. I mean, even when 3PO comes through the door, he immediately, his hand goes to his lightsaber. He's still on edge.
On edge, right. He's got to have a lot of PTSD at some point, yeah.
And now he has this commanding role, and he's expected, like, he has to feel like people are after him constantly.
Paranoia, in a way.
Because he knows not everyone agrees with what they did.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing we don't really see, at least at this point, maybe behind the scenes or maybe in later chapters or whatever, but, it's like And especially in A New Hope, we don't ever see him grieve for his uncle and aunt, but at the same time, it's like, how many people were on that Death Star? I know that's kind of a meme at this point, but it's like, how many people were actually on that Death Star? It's like, if he actually took some time to think about that, maybe he was, he wasn't the most force sensitive at this point. So when Obi-Wan Kenobi felt all the millions of voices just screamed out in pain, when Alderaan was destroyed, maybe Luke didn't quite have the sensitivity to feel everybody on the Death Star, but he had to have thought about that later on at some point.
I feel like Star Wars has very little grief in it, actually, until you go to the prequel trilogy. Anakin is struggling with a lot of grief for things that he think will come to pass, for things that have come to pass, but grief is quite a foreign feeling in the Star Wars universe, I feel.
It definitely seems like it, especially at this point. Yeah.
I mean, that's common in media anyway.
True.
We don't see a lot of grief in movies in general.
Yeah. We do see Luke kind of bow his head for his aunt and uncle for like 1 or 2 seconds, and that's about it. And then he's like, oh, whatever, okay, I'm going to go be a Jedi now.
And that's at the sight of seeing their charred bodies, not like, oh, I heard they died.
It almost seems like he just kind of forgets about him after, the rest of the movie.
Well, he has other things to do. I actually think that moment communicates quite a lot in such a short amount of time.
Very true. That's very true. But yeah.
But I think that with the intentions of that movie, it could distract from the main focus.
Yeah.
I think just that one really simple, powerful moment of him, of the weight of what happened with them dying, not just losing them, but also the journey has to go on now, just hitting him and that simple reaction. And then he does grieve Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, he does. It's true. He does.
Death Star
with
Leia.
Right. Yeah.
But also with him losing Owen and Beru, it's like it's almost like he's free too.
True. Yeah.
There's
very
real
complicated.
Bittersweetness about that.
Bittersweet.
He's like, all right, I can go to Tachi Station now.
Luke's life does seem to be very lonely, though, and that's something that is captured in this chapter, is that he feels like the last of the Jedi, and even Obi-Wan Kenobi's Force Ghost says, you're not the last of the old Jedi, you're the first of the new.
Yeah, that was cool.
And that still doesn't assuage feelings of loneliness.
No, that's true.
No, it doesn't.
He feels like, I'm alone because I'm not the last, but I'm alone because I'm the first now. And that does change perspective, and I guess offers a path forward, that you are the first here, but you can get more friends and more allies in the future, which is touched upon. But he's also the only one that can touch the Force, and people are turning to him as the authority on spirituality, basically, for the New Republic.
Pope.
In a way, I mean, he's kind of, he's like their go-to guy, because, I mean, at this point he is training Leia, but she's still very, new. She can't even turn off the light switch, with the Force yet.
I thought that was good. It's nice to see people not being good at stuff.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
We do open up with Luke with Ben saying goodbye to him again. I was a little confused by that. Like, is he passing on again? Where is he going? I don't know. That was maybe it was just me, but I was a little confused by that.
It did feel kind of like
I was too.
It felt a little bit like well, where do you have to go? It's like what
do you have to do?
He's like, I'm gonna miss the premiere of my new show.
The line here that says from Master Yoda, "I'm strong in the Force, but not that strong." I felt that, combined with, if we think about Revenge of the Sith, which at this point hasn't been made because it's 1991, but they talk about being a Force ghost is manifesting an individual consciousness from the Force after death. So what I see this as is that if you are sufficiently powerful enough, you can separate yourself as the individual you used to be from the larger force in the galaxy. But as time goes on, you are less and less able to be an individual and must integrate with the Force. So that's the way that I read this.
I like that interpretation.
I like that perspective.
Yeah, because isn't the point of isn't the whole point of being one with the Force is like you're just you make up one little tiny building block of the entire massive Force. So if everybody could become a Force ghost, then it's like the Force wouldn't really be unified, I guess.
Does that mean using the Force is manipulating dead people?
Yes.
Maybe. Yeah,
Their energy, at least.
That's the
That's neat.
Does that mean Jedis are necromancers?
Ooh.
Oh, that's the real question. Yeah.
My favorite kind of magician.
I always got the sense that the Force was like energies in nature.
Created by like living things.
Yeah.
You mean?
The tension between extremes.
And that's why when it comes to like Emperor Palpatine's chambers, it's like heavy metal. It's like not natural material, and the reason why Yoda is so powerful is because he's in the swamps surrounded by nature.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. One of my favorite details in The Last Jedi is how throughout the saga we've seen Palpatine conjuring lightning from himself, but Yoda conjures it by working with nature. That was always one of my favorite little details.
So in this chapter, we also get, as Ben's moving away, he says, I loved you as a son and as a student and as a friend. And I felt like this was a really nice expression of platonic love. And it feels very, very healthy. And we also have the representation later that Luke then passes that on to familial love to Leia and asks 3PO to remind Leia that he loves her. And I feel like love and trust is one of the themes of this chapter that gets passed around as well. And it was nice to have that kind of cohesion that was, I felt like a very, very healthy expression of connection between people.
That's a really good point.
I love when characters in stories are not afraid to admit their emotions.
Me too.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, it was good. It was just very, it was appropriate. My only issue with that was like, how long did he know Luke? Like, did he really create? Did he really, build that strong of a bond with him at this point?
I mean, he was always there.
He's kind of watched them his whole life.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, you're right. That's true.
So maybe the feelings are a little stronger on Ben's side, but like
definitely, yeah.
What did you think of them moving the New Republic capital to Coruscant, and in particular the Imperial Castle?
Luke thought it was pretty bold.
Luke has his misgivings about that, but
yeah,
what's your opinion?
Yeah, big energy there. Just really throw it in their faces.
Yeah, I did think it was a little bit like they come into Palpatine's castle and start pissing on all this stuff.
I mean, it is bold. I agree with Luke's misgivings about it, and I think it'll be a pretty interesting source of conflict in the future. At least I hope so.
Yeah, I think he's worried about it sending the wrong message of what the New Republic is going to represent.
Yeah, very true. It really is. Yeah, it's
because he does talk about symbols.
I mean, Star Wars is about cycles, but yeah.
And also, like, even though there are buildings hold meaning and memories to them. Like, if you're in certain parts of Germany, you can still see buildings that clearly had Nazi symbolism on them. Just, and like, when people see that, they're always going to think, oh, that was the place. That was one of the places.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting how that's juxtaposed with that Luke is very specifically asked, is there anything here? Do you feel like the Emperor was looking over our shoulder? And he has to admit through gritted teeth that he doesn't feel anything. Like, there's no negative energy that has permeated the Imperial Palace, that it's kind of empty. So he can't raise this as a, oh yeah, well, I feel the bad juju here, so we can't set up our government.
Who who went over Luke's head on this? If he's not happy with it, who decided this for him then?
Wasn't it Mon Mothma?
The two characters we get are Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which, again, call back to our first chapter, talking about not having too many named characters. This is a very good chapter for that. We get the introduction of Winter, we get the introduction of Paige, and then everybody else has been a background character before. So,
Right.
again,
Yeah.
talking to you, High Republic. Yeah, we got Mon Mothma, Admiral Akbar, and I think Leia as the heads of government here that are vying for, or at least the spearhead of whatever council that they keep referring to.
Right.
Mon Mothma just keeps sticking around, huh?
Yeah.
I feel like she has like an old blood politician vibe, and I feel like they should have.
Wasn't she in the an imperial politician?
Was she?
I think, yeah, she was.
Huh.
She was, yeah.
Like-
She was a politician during that time, but then behind closed doors.
Was she an imperial politician, or was she just a regular, like, you know?
Well, every politician at the time was an imperial politician
True.
because politics were imperial.
Imperial by default, but was she imperial by loyalty or just by default?
No.
Right. Because, I mean, obviously she's in charge of the rebellion or New Republic at this point. Right.
I mean, I think it's interesting that they choose those specific leaders. I think Leia is a solid choice because, I mean, she has a fresher perspective. At the same time, though, she's basically pretty much only been through war. Who knows how that would influence her perspective? I mean, this isn't a criticism of the story by any means, because I actually think it's pretty thematically cohesive with what we typically see from Star Wars, and it's pretty prescient considering that this is taking place, that this was released before the prequel trilogy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's pretty prescient of Timothy Zahn to pick up on that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying from a pragmatic government perspective, you know, maybe you should choose new people to set up the new government.
Leia makes a point that she is the only one with experience in two aspects of politics, where I think Akbar is the military leader and Mothma is the political leader, but then trying to find somebody that has a practical go-between those two branches of government Leia is the only one that can do this. And until that is kind of pointed out, I felt like Leia's a little bit of a control freak.
How so?
Like, she has to have her hand in all the pies, but that's not because she feels like she has to have all her hands in all the pies. It's because she literally is the only one with the skills that goes between all those domains.
Gotcha.
Still feel like she could probably train somebody to do it, though. She's pregnant after all.
Probably.
Everything's gonna...
Yeah.
We can't have the Republic falling apart because she goes on maternity leave.
Do you think before this, she tended to stand up and get involved by choice, and for her now, this is the first time where it's by necessity?
Yeah.
I think so.
I feel like that's a hard call to make. In Empire, at the beginning on Hoth, she was given orders pretty naturally. So, yeah, maybe I do think that she stood up to be the one to do that by choice.
Yeah, and they didn't seem to have like a special evacuation plan for her either.
No.
And so before, she's basically just been volunteering herself, continuously standing out, doing everything she can. She has a high rank, but she's not necessarily the most important figure. She's a very important one, but she's not, you know, the rebellion can go on without her. Now she's in a point where the New Republic, their chances of establishing themselves and surviving will severely decrease if she's not there.
Right.
And that's probably a pretty new thing for her to experience.
I imagine it must be hard because you can't just stop being part of the rebellion after you've won. It's, you know, you're in it
you
now.
can't.
Like, so you can't just go do something else.
And they make the point that they're transitioning from a military-oriented rebellion to a civilian-based government. And, you know, you can't just, you know, they didn't win by political victory. They won by explosions. So it's very hard to Guy Fawkes your way into a point of democracy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to see the shaky ground they're starting on.
It is.
Adds quite a bit of tension.
It's interesting to see, even in this chapter, how vulnerable they still really are.
I mean, if everything's perfect, you haven't got a plot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It is also mentioned in this chapter that Leia is pregnant with twins,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
and that are apparently force-sensitive twins, because Luke can feel them from across the palace.
Oh, that's such an uncomfortable thing to describe.
Right? I don't know if I would like if I always knew where my sister was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like,
She could always feel the babies growing inside her.
yeah,
That's just weird.
it's like, I mean, it's bad enough, when my wife being pregnant with a couple kids, it's like,
At least he didn't have to be feeling them all the time. Yeah.
she described it well enough in vivid detail. I don't need to feel that through the force. Can I talk about the hot chocolate?
Yes, let's dive into the hot chocolate.
I feel like, okay, so the one thing that really bugged me about this chapter was Timothy Zahn. You could have written any kind of space drink you wanted, but you had to make it hot chocolate, which is, for me, in a Star Wars book, it's just way too close to home. I don't know. It
Same,
just
I
bugged
agree.
me. It really bugged me. You could have called it anything.
At least call the chocolate
Right.
something else.
It just,
It wasn't even just hot chocolate, because Winter offers Leia some milk or crackers.
see, milk and crackers, I mean, it could have been blue milk. It could have been, like bantha milk or blue milk or whatever. It could have been any kind of milk, But chocolate, it's like, sure. I mean, yeah, there's human things in the Star Wars universe. I mean, there's humans, for Christ's sake. There could be chocolate. Just call it anything else, or have just have Luke drink any other kind of drink. If Lando had introduced him to it, it was probably like, it probably actually would have been like Colt 45 or something. It wouldn't have been hot chocolate.
I don't know. Lando's a pretty
I don't know,
classy
that just-
guy. I could imagine it being a little bit more that he has that kind of either hot cocoa or even like an Irish what do you call it? Irish coffee or something like that. Belgian coffee.
Yeah.
They just call it Carillion coffee.
Carillion coffee. There you go. That would have been great. But I don't know. Hot chocolate to me, it's too juvenile, I guess.
A little bit too much wink at the camera for you.
Yeah, kind
Way
of.
too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it cuts to Han, it's also mentioned that he's sipping out of a mug, and I also wondered if that was hot chocolate.
That would definitely be alcoholic hot chocolate, though.
Yeah.
Chocolate Russians at Tatooine.
Luke just gets up in the middle of the night to take shots.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. What did you guys think of Winter?
She seems very robotic.
She does, very much so. But I thought it was a little interesting that, Timothy Zahn kind of explains to us how she had basically been with Leia, either her whole life or most of her life. But this is like the first time we've ever heard about her.
Right.
What do you mean? She's always been there.
She was that nondescript,
Yeah,
normal heighted, normal something.
she was Paige.
She was Paige in a wig.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
She reminds me a lot of Luna Lovegood in Harry Potter,
okay.
and I wonder if
Yeah,
there might have been, I don't know,
I can see that.
inspiration, but like, there's definitely this kind of like away with the fairies, kind of white-haired, wispy stereotype that this is drawing upon.
She did feel pretty stereotypical to me.
I see that.
Mm.
Yeah, and even in the audiobook, they gave her kind of a generic, like, British accent.
Isn't that those are the royal accents though in the Star Wars universe? There's a YouTube video that talks about their different accents.
Yeah, I mean, even Carrie Fisher had gone like to a British accent for like one scene in A New Hope on accident. So
Right? It's almost like a front she puts on.
yeah,
She's
in a
being more
way,
diplomatic.
yeah,
But I mean, like that's what you would do as a politician if you're standing as a politician versus you're standing as yourself. People go through a lot of vocal training and
yeah, very true.
speech training so that you're not stuttering like
It's like when the
this
queen does
or-
the queen wave.
yeah.
The Queen wave.
There's a lot of training that goes into being a leader.
Media training.
Yeah, very true. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think particularly if she was trained from a very young age to like we are part of the Empire, but we don't agree with everything, that there would be a very kind of like, pull down the curtain, and now I'm in British mode, or I'm in Imperial Court mode, and then take it off, and there'll be quite a big transition between those two things from her father or whatever.
I'm not sure how I feel about the name Winter either.
Why is that?
It seems a little, I don't know.
It doesn't seem quite Star Wars, but at the same time, Star Wars has been a lot of things.
Yeah. What about Paige?
Paige. But Paige I can see, weirdly enough.
I can see it too. It doesn't seem like an Earth name. It seems to be somewhat appropriate for this universe, but Winter does feel kind of like an Earth name, like an Earth season word.
Yeah, she hasn't really made the strongest impression.
Would you have preferred the name Frostmas or Sestivate?
I would love that. I wouldn't hate it.
Now just like juggle it around to make a Star Wars name, like Rintraw or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you guys say that, it's like Winter does feel like a little too on the nose.
Particularly with the white hair.
Yeah, she felt like she was being forcefully inserted in quite a few ways to me.
It seems a little lazy, I guess.
Maybe unrefined.
Yeah. She needs a Foley for this scene, though. She can't be talking to 3PO the entire time.
Yeah. Winter, though, Winter's kind of a good name for her. Cold personality, I guess.
Maybe. I guess we'll... I'm interested to see where it goes, though. I'm not happy with the introduction to this character, but I'm also not discounting that for future chapters.
Yeah, true. Definitely, yeah.
Anyone else have any thoughts on the chapter?
Not as impactful as the first chapter, but it's a solid setup. We've got a lot of loose ends that we're looking to see where they blast off to.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see where it goes.
Han was pretty excellent, though. That was probably my favorite part to read.
Yeah, it was kind of... He seemed a little sad that he couldn't join the smugglers in their smuggling, now that he's gone all respectable.
He doesn't want to be in the army. He wants to be smuggling. He wants to be out.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it was a really great place to start him off for this. So, yeah.
He's like, he's just trying to recruit one of his old friends.
Han doesn't settle down.
There's also a line here, though, that says, profits are what drive a smuggler, Solo. Profits and excitement. And I feel like that doesn't describe the character anymore. Like, he was definitely that in A New Hope. But at this point in his character, there's, he's very clearly not this thing. And he's, I think, same as Luke, struggling to see what the next step is, because he doesn't feel like this and he doesn't feel like that.
Right.
So where does that leave him? Leia's the only one that really has a place, but she is also looking to the next chapter of her life, being motherhood, and feels like she's there through obligation or duty or something, and everybody is dealing with what feels like the same thing from a very unique perspective.
Yeah. They're fighting their own battles, but it's like, the same battle, but it's just on different fronts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how it's developed.
Looking forward to chapter 3.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This has been The Lost Holocron. You can find transcripts, links to discussions, and more at our website, lostholocron.com. While you're there, you can learn how to support the creation of future episodes. Read on, and we'll be waiting for you in the next transmission. We would be honored if you would join us.